Because I don't want to be here. I'm forced to be here to fight these charges.
All right, thank you. You're here because the jury convicted you of brutally killing your wife.
Interrupting me while I'm talking. I don't interrupt you, so why do you keep interrupting me? I know you're the judge, but there's supposed to be due process.
Hear me out. I've heard enough of this narcissistic. You're a narcissist. Well, and I'm not going to put this family...
It sounds like you're a narcissist because you're talking and you're going all...
Shut his microphone off, and if you keep talking, I'm going to do it without you. You'll be in there. I've heard enough from you. You killed your wife. A jury of 12 convicted you.
A white jury that did not have any black jurors on there, and that's not law. That is a setup. So you want to send me out there, I'll go out there, but you know what the law is, and you haven't followed it. And neither has you, and neither has you.
All right.
Everybody sat here and
hear me out. Shut up.
I'm not going to shut up.
Get him out of here.
Get me out of here.
I want to apologize.
A woman stands in front of her phone's camera, quietly adjusting the angle. The recording starts, not with words, but with a scene that leaves no need for explanation. It is a clear, unfiltered account of an assault, each movement preserved in pixels. Within hours, the clip is uploaded for anyone to see. The comments flood in, some questioning, others certain about what they just witnessed. In the days that follow, she is seen moving between familiar streets and official buildings. Friends and relatives notice her pattern, staying close to her children, keeping certain people informed of her whereabouts. The court date on her calendar approaches. It is not just a formality. It involves the same man in the video. On a weekday morning, she leaves home with her children in the car. The school run is routine, yet she chooses her route carefully. The neighborhood is still, the sound of traffic distant. A vehicle appears, and its driver is not unknown to her. What follows is sudden, precise, and leaves no chance for conversation. Within minutes, the area fills with bystanders, flashing lights, and cordon tape. The recording from days earlier now feels like a prelude rather than an isolated incident. Investigators begin piecing together the sequence, from the upload of the footage to this final encounter. The timeline is short, but every hour in it matters. Authorities review the earlier incident, the charges filed, the court appearances missed or delayed. Each fact feeds into a larger question, whether the warning signs were clear enough, and if they were, why events reached this point. The answer, for now, is contained within reports, witness statements, and an unbroken chain of evidence. The footage remains online, its original purpose overshadowed by what happened next. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Uncovered, where we examine the cases that shake communities and expose what happens behind closed doors. Real stories, real people, real impact. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Her full legal name was Kiera LaShawn Hudson, though she was also widely known as Kiera Benefield following her marriage. At the time of the events, she was 40 years old and living in Buffalo, New York. Kiera resided in the city's east side, an area where she had established herself among neighbors as a familiar and recognizable figure. She was a mother of 3 children, all under the age of 14. The children were from different stages in her life. 2 from a previous relationship, and 1 from her marriage to the man later accused in her death. Professionally, there is limited public record of her employment, but friends and acquaintances describe her as someone who worked locally and maintained strong family ties. Her community presence was modest, but consistent. She attended school functions, maintained connections with relatives, and was known by residents in her block. Her relationship with the accused, Adam Benefield, was not new. Records and statements indicate they had known each other for several years before marrying. The marriage itself, however, was reportedly brief and turbulent. Police records show multiple incidents of domestic disputes between the two, some of which had resulted in official reports. There is no public documentation confirming a formal restraining order filed against Benefield prior to the fatal incident, though police confirmed there had been calls to their residence in previous months. It remains unclear whether she had actively sought shelter through local domestic violence programs, but advocacy groups in Buffalo later suggested She had been in contact with at least one support organization before the events escalated. What can background checks or prior police records reveal about patterns of violence before this case? In the weeks before the video that would later gain national attention, Kiera's private life showed signs of strain. She was seen making frequent trips between her home and relatives' houses, sometimes staying overnight away from her primary residence. Neighbors noted she became less visible in her usual routines. School drop-offs and pickups were sometimes handled by other family members. Her social media activity, while still consistent, shifted in tone, more direct statements about personal struggles and coded remarks about her safety. According to family accounts and police timelines, September 2022 saw several confrontations between Kiera and Benefield. One incident reportedly occurred at or near their shared residence, prompting a police response. While charges in that incident were minor and did not lead to detention, the pattern of disputes was recorded in police logs. The turning point came in the last week of September 2022. On that date, Kiera recorded a video showing an assault in progress. The footage, captured on her phone, depicted a physical attack allegedly carried out by Adam Benefield. The environment suggests it occurred indoors, possibly in her home. After the recording, Kiera's next actions were deliberate. The video was uploaded to her Facebook profile. The decision to make it public ensured that it could not be erased or altered privately. In the hours following the post, the accused's behavior is partially documented through police reports. Benefield was located, taken into custody, and charged, not with felony assault, but with misdemeanor offenses. This legal classification became a key detail, as it allowed for his release without bail under New York state law. From a legal standpoint, Kiera's choice to record the assault was significant. It served as contemporaneous evidence of the violence, leaving little ambiguity about what occurred. However, existing statutes did not automatically elevate the charges to a level that required pretrial detention. Her reasons for recording the video remain speculative. It could have been intended for law enforcement, to share with friends or family, or as a public warning. Regardless of intent, the posting of such clear evidence raised questions about the system's capacity to act decisively in cases where danger is visible and immediate. If such a video exists, should it automatically trigger a more severe legal response from authorities? The first official law enforcement involvement in the days preceding the homicide occurred on September 28, 2022, when Buffalo police responded to a domestic incident involving Kiera Hudson and her estranged husband, Adam Benefield. Reports indicate that officers reviewed video evidence showing a physical assault. The footage, later shared publicly, became central to the case file. Following the incident, Adam Benefield was taken into custody and formally charged. The charges were limited to misdemeanor counts of third-degree assault, fourth-degree criminal mischief, and second-degree unlawful imprisonment. None of these charges qualified as bail-eligible offenses under New York's bail reform law, which have been updated in 2020 to limit pretrial detention for nonviolent misdemeanors. As a result, the judge overseeing the arraignment ordered his release without monetary bail. Instead, he was issued a court date to address the charges. Court documents from the arraignment outlined the allegations in technical terms. The assault occurred in a private residence, involved physical strikes, and resulted in visible injury. Criminal mischief was applied due to reported property damage during the same event. The unlawful imprisonment charge referenced allegations that Kiera was prevented from leaving during the altercation. The release occurred within 24 hours of his arrest. The timeline from that point until the court date for the custody dispute was short, approximately 1 week. This meant Adam Benefield was free in the same community as the alleged victim, while both a criminal case and a separate family court matter were pending. How often do domestic abuse suspects reoffend while awaiting court hearings? Following his release, Kiera Hudson took several actions to protect herself. She visited a local Buffalo Police Department precinct to express ongoing safety concerns. According to statements from her relatives, she spoke with officers about her fear of further contact with Adam. There is no public record indicating that a protective order was issued during this period. She also spent time at the homes of friends and family members, avoiding predictable routines. These visits serve both as temporary shelter and opportunities to communicate her concerns face-to-face. Several relatives later confirmed that she warned them about the possibility of another confrontation. One notable precaution she took was sharing her phone password and account information with trusted individuals. Her stated purpose, according to family interviews, was so they could access her messages and location data in the event she could not communicate. This step suggested a level of planning for potential escalation. In addition to the pending criminal case, there was an active custody dispute scheduled in family court. This dispute involved the children she shared with Adam Benefield and was due for a hearing on October 5, 2022. The proximity of the family court date to the recent criminal charges created a period of heightened tension. The overlap of legal processes meant both parties were likely to be in or near court facilities within days of each other. Reports from family members suggest that in the final days before her death, Kiera noticed possible surveillance. She mentioned seeing vehicles similar to Adam's near her home and other frequented locations. It remains unclear whether these sightings were officially reported or verified by investigators before the shooting. Despite these measures, visiting police, changing locations, alerting loved ones, and limiting predictable patterns, there was no enforced barrier preventing the accused from approaching her. The legal framework in place at the time did not mandate pretrial detention or electronic monitoring for a set of charges. What surveillance measures could protect victims when a known abuser is still free? The morning of October 5, 2022 began like many others for Kiera Hudson, except for one significant factor. She was wearing a bulletproof vest. The court hearing involving her estranged husband, Adam Benefield, was scheduled for later that day. Before that, she had her usual responsibility, taking her children to school. Hudson drove her SUV along familiar streets in Buffalo, New York. The destination was the same as on previous days, and she followed the normal route toward the school. The children were seated in the vehicle, unaware of what was about to happen. The location where events unfolded was the intersection of Shawnee Avenue and Richlawn Avenue, a residential area with houses set back from the street and modest morning traffic. According to investigators, Benefield was already nearby. His approach was deliberate. He was driving a separate vehicle and positioned himself along a path that would intercept Hudson's car. Witness accounts later described a sudden collision. Benefield's vehicle reportedly struck the front of Hudson's SUV, forcing it to a stop. He exited quickly. The weapon he carried was a shotgun, a close-range firearm with significant destructive capacity. Neighbors and other drivers reported hearing multiple blasts in quick succession. The attack took place in view of at least one of Hudson's children. Could the sequence of events that morning, location selection, vehicle positioning, and weapon readiness, indicate premeditation? After the gunfire, calls to emergency services began within seconds. Police units arrived quickly, followed by emergency medical personnel. The first priority was securing the area. Officers established a perimeter, redirecting traffic away from Shawnee and Richlawn to preserve any potential evidence. Shell casings and other ballistic evidence were recovered from the roadway. Hudson's SUV showed signs of collision damage consistent with witness descriptions. Investigators searched for and collected any surveillance footage from nearby homes or businesses, aiming to track the suspect's movements before and after the shooting. Officers on scene took statements from witnesses. This included adults who had been outdoors or near windows, as well as motorists who had driven past during or shortly after the shooting. The most sensitive interviews were with Hudson's children, handled by specialized officers trained in speaking with minors who have witnessed violent crime. Medical responders pronounced Hudson deceased at the scene. The bulletproof vest she wore was not sufficient to protect her from the shotgun blast fired at close range. Once her identity and the suspect were confirmed, Buffalo police issued an alert naming Adam Benefield as wanted for questioning in connection with a homicide. Warrants for his arrest were formally issued the same day. Why does it often take a violent crime for certain arrest warrants to be prioritized, especially when suspects have a documented history of prior offenses? Following the shooting, Benefield was immediately considered armed and dangerous. The Buffalo Police Department worked in coordination with state law enforcement and federal agencies to track him. This included the New York State Police and the U.S. Marshal Service. The search extended beyond Buffalo city limits into neighboring counties, with law enforcement reviewing traffic cameras, surveillance footage, and license plate recognition data. Tips from the public were solicited through official channels, and a reward was offered for information leading to his capture. Benign-Field remained at large for several days. During that period, investigators monitored potential safe houses, spoke to his known associates, and checked locations tied to his prior activities. He was eventually located and taken into custody without reported incident. The arrest was carried out in western New York, though authorities did not disclose the exact location immediately to preserve investigative integrity. Once in custody, Benefield's charges were upgraded from his earlier domestic-related misdemeanors to include second-degree murder, criminal possession of a weapon, and other related offenses tied directly to the events of October 5th. With Benefield detained, arrangements were made for Hudson's children to be placed under the care of relatives. Child Protective Services coordinated with family members to ensure custody was transferred in a manner that minimized further trauma. Should bail reform laws be re-examined when suspects face multiple pending violent charges, especially in cases where there is clear video evidence of prior assaults? Following his apprehension, Adam Benefield was formally arraigned in Buffalo City Court. He faced upgraded charges that included second-degree murder, in addition to prior domestic assault charges from the incident captured on video. During the arraignment, Benefield entered a plea of not guilty to all charges. Court documents recorded the plea without additional commentary from the defendant. Prosecutors entered the Facebook video of the assault into the official evidence list, establishing a direct link between the accused and the earlier incident. Eyewitness testimony was submitted from individuals present on the morning of the shooting, including one bystander who reportedly saw a vehicle strike Hudson's SUV before shots were fired. Investigators also introduced forensic evidence. Ballistics matched shell casings from the crime scene to a shotgun later recovered in a search linked to the accused. Surveillance camera footage from nearby residences captured portions of the pursuit and the shooting. The defense argued procedural points, questioning the admissibility of certain statements and the sequence of police handling during the domestic assault arrest. They also pointed to the absence of felony-level charges at the time of his initial release, suggesting that prior proceedings should not be prejudicial to the current case. The prosecution countered by framing the earlier assault and the subsequent homicide as part of a continuous pattern, emphasizing that the release after the misdemeanor charge allowed an opportunity for escalation. During pretrial hearings, the court acknowledged that state bail laws had limited the ability to detain the defendant after the domestic assault arrest, as the charges then did not qualify for bail. While no judicial misconduct was cited, the proceedings repeatedly referenced the limitations in current statutes. As the trial date approached, prosecutors filed motions to add charges related to illegal possession of a firearm and use of a weapon during the commission of felony. The amended indictment reflected multiple counts tied to both the assault and the homicide. The court scheduled the trial for mid-2023. Multiple delays occurred due to defense motions for evidence review and prosecution requests for additional forensic testing. Jury selection began later in the year, with significant attention given to screening jurors who had seen media coverage. Witness lists included responding officers, forensic analysts, and Hudson's relatives for context on the earlier incident. Can prior violent misdemeanors be enough to predict fatal escalation? Local Buffalo outlets followed the case extensively, running updates after each court appearance. National media picked up the story due to the Facebook video and the debate it sparked over bail reform laws in New York. Major news organizations ran segments outlining the sequence of events, often using side-by-side footage of the court proceedings and the original video. The case became a focal point in state-level debates about criminal justice reform. Critics of the bail system argued that the inability to detain Benefield after the assault arrest highlighted a dangerous loophole. Supporters of reform countered that changing the law based on individual cases risked undermining broader justice system goals. Legislative hearings later cited the Hudson case in discussions about potential amendments to the law. Hudson's relatives spoke publicly, focusing on perceived gaps in protection for domestic violence victims. Advocacy groups used the case to call for measures such as mandatory risk assessments for domestic assault suspects and broader definitions for bail-eligible offenses. Some organizations launched informational campaigns to teach victims about documenting abuse and accessing protective orders. Several domestic violence awareness events in Buffalo featured Hudson's case as a central example of systemic challenges. Nonprofits organize workshops explaining how bail laws work and how victims can navigate the legal system. These campaigns included both in-person seminars and digital outreach. Online petitions circulated, demanding changes to the bail statute to include certain violent misdemeanors. Thousands of signatures were collected, and some petitions were presented to state lawmakers. The petitions also called for stricter monitoring of defendants in active domestic violence cases, including GPS tracking and mandatory check-ins. A jury, after a 3-day trial, found Adam R. Benefield, Sr. guilty of murder in the second degree, Class AI felony, aggravated criminal contempt, Class D felony, and 3 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, Class A misdemeanors, Erie County. On December 23, 2024, State Supreme Court Justice M. William Bowler imposed a maximum sentence of 25 years to life in prison in Erie County. The sentencing reflects a lethal escalation and premeditated nature of the act, intentionally crashing his truck into his estranged wife's vehicle at the school drop-off intersection, with her 3 children inside, followed immediately by shooting her with a shotgun while she was still in the car, Erie County. The court viewed these actions as especially egregious given that she had sought help and there was an existing order of protection. As of the latest publicly available records, there are no reported appeals having been filed by Benefield or his legal team since sentencing. No appeals have been noted in official updates or media reporting. A wrongful death lawsuit was filed in October 2024 by Kiara Hudson's estate. The suit names Adam Benefield, the town of Cheektowaga, and the Cheektowaga Police Department as defendants. The estate alleges negligence. Authorities failed to properly charge Benefield with felony after Hudson provided video evidence and should have prevented his release, WIVB.com. The lawsuit contends that law enforcement's failure to act on the video and her expressed fear led directly to her death. Hudson's 3 children, who witnessed the shooting, were placed into the care of family members following the incident, WIVB.com. No publicly available records indicate a change in this status, nor any updated guardianship outcomes or custody adjustments since the arraignment stage. Data from Erie County show a marked increase in domestic violence incidents and deaths. In 2022, there were 16 domestic violence-related deaths, the highest number recorded in a single year, including Hudson's case, Investigative Post. Advocates cite systemic barriers, lack of economic support, housing, coordination among agencies, cultural trust gaps as factors in these failures. The case underscores how siloed systems and resource constraints contribute to escalations, Investigative Post. In New York, the 2019 bail reform eliminated cash bail for many misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies, further restricting judges from considering a defendant's dangerousness. As a result, misdemeanor-level domestic assaults, like Benefield's, led to automatic release, Wikipedia, Buffalo News. Subsequent adjustments, including the 2020 amendments, restored limited judge discretion over some additional charges, city and state New York. By contrast, states like Illinois enacted the Safety Act, eliminating cash bail but allowing judges to deny release when a defendant poses a clear threat, Wikipedia. In Ohio, Amy's law requires risk assessments and mandatory judicial appearances for domestic violence defendants before bail decisions, Wikipedia. California attempted to eliminate cash bail, but voters rejected the reform. Its system still relies on judicial behavior and criminal history, Wikipedia. In Erie County, domestic violence is rising. In 1 year alone, 600-plus victims were reported, 61 deaths since 2018, with 16 deaths in 2022, Investigative Post. Nationally, studies indicate that unaddressed abuse, even when non-lethal, can quickly escalate to lethal outcomes. Cases like this emphasize the consequences when early warning signs are not acted upon. The Serve Our Communities Act, proposed by New York Republicans, would offer $10 million annually in grants to local jurisdictions implementing policies that allow judges to consider public danger in bail decisions and to repeal cashless bail restrictions, New York Post. Locally, advocates and family members have called for Hudson's Law, reform that would strengthen pretrial detention standards specifically in domestic violence cases. WWW7 News, Buffalo. Governor Hochul has proposed changes to discovery rules, aiming to reduce dismissal of domestic violence cases based on technicalities, New York Post. Senior legislators like Senator Borrello have called for repeal or modification of the 2019 bail reform, restoring judicial discretion and expanding bail eligibility to include additional domestic offenses, NewYorkSenate.gov. The urgent need for safety for victims is clear, but the balance between pretrial rights and public protection remains a complex legal question, one that this case brings into stark relief. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.